Hi, I have a quick announcement before we dive into today's episode. I've opened a few new spots for my 90-day program called the Inner Oasis, designed to help high-achieving women who are stuck in chronic stress and burnout to retrain their nervous system so that calm, sleep, and balance become their default, not a temporary break. I will be using a unique blend of sound healing, energy healing, and journaling. So if this is something you want support with, you can book a call at www.inneroasis.org or use the link in the description to get your personal 90-day recovery plan for free. Now, let's get into today's episode with my next guest. Hi, Holly. Thank you for coming today to Align and Thriving. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. So today we're going to talk about your higher self. I really like that because it's a theme, a topic that not a lot of people know about, but we all have it and we all want to use it. It's very useful and actually are starting to learn more about it now. So you are a psychotherapist, hypnosis practitioner. I love that. And also you have a book. It's called the Spiritual Growth Trilogy. So we're going to talk about that too. So can you talk a bit about your background because you didn't start in spirituality at all?
No, no, my background is in mechanical engineering.
So what happened?
Well, Veronique, like most people who come into spiritual service, tragedy happened.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, that's true.
yeah. And so this is going back 13, 14 years ago. I had a very successful corporate career in engineering and management and executive leadership. And I had already finished my PhD in psychology and was doing more things in the corporate world, like leadership development, executive coaching, that kind of thing. And then at the time, my 20-year-old son was arrested for a DUI and was
Mhm.
incarcerated. And it was a very dangerous situation for him. He was going to be incarcerated for 21 days. I couldn't visit him. I had very rare phone conversations with him. And in one of those phone conversations, he says, "Hey, Mom, I found this book in jail I think you'd really like." It
Okay,
was
random.
Dolores Cannon's Convoluted Universe, Book 4, just random.
Oh
I
my
later
God.
found out she had a prison outreach program with her publishing company, so it makes sense that he found her. But I had never heard of her, never would have heard of her, Verani. And so I just Amazon, click, click, bought the book just to have something to talk to my son about the next phone call. And I get this book and I start reading it, and I'm like, everything I've ever believed in my entire life. And here it is in print. And I've never seen it in print before. So I became a huge fan of hers. She wrote 21 books over her 40, 50-year career, all about all kinds of metaphysical subjects. And so I
I'm
was
sorry.
just
I,
devouring her books.
sorry, I just want to let you know I just discovered her too,
Uh-huh.
and I listened to her book Between Death and Life, and it just changed my life. I just
Yes,
wanted to let you know that because when you said her name, I was like, oh my God. Okay.
yes. Everybody says that after they start reading her books. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I haven't read that one, so I'm gonna ask you, later.
Yeah, keep going, keep going.
Yes.
So, anyway, I had read like a half a dozen books by the time he got out of jail, and she was gonna be doing a weekend seminar shortly after that. And I said to my son, I'm like, "Let's go see her. Let's be in the room with her. Let's do one of these weekend seminars." And what she would do is she would put 200 people into hypnosis simultaneously.
Well, that's possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
for her.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
And so, it was one of those kinds of things. So it was like 3 days, and each day it was like a different theme. So there was past life regression, there was meet your spirit guide, there was extraterrestrial exploration, there was future life, all kinds of different things. And I'm going into this because I have an engineering background. I'm super analytical. I loved her books, loved her research, but I'm going in as a complete skeptic going, "This hypnosis is not gonna work on me."
Mhm.
I love her, I love everything she's written, nothing against her, I'm just like, "I'm too analytical, this hypnosis thing is not gonna work on me," and that's okay. And so we go into the first hypnosis. Now, granted, in this one, there's like maybe 100 people in the room, and it was a past life regression. And I had one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life. I went into a past life. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt it was not my imagination. I would have never imagined this scenario. And, we find out all sorts of things about how that life is connected to this life and people in that life are connected to this life. Anyway, she brings everybody out and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this stuff works. It really, really, really works." Like I'm gonna run up to the stage and tell Dolores Cannon, who's been doing this already for 30 years, "Do you know this works?"
Yeah. I mean, it's always weird when it happens to you. You're like, "Oh, yeah, it does work, right?"
Does work, absolutely
Yeah.
works on this complete skeptic. And that was in January and February, I was in training to be a hypnotherapist in
Okay.
her technique. I'm like, "I'm done. I
Yes,
know what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is too
in the light.
powerful, this is too profound. I'm good. I got it." So that's how I got into
Oh, so that's how you got it. Okay. You scared me a little bit when you said, it started with a tragedy. Okay, it wasn't that bad. He went to
No, it
jail.
wasn't that bad. It was
Okay.
tragedy with a little T, and my son today, I mean, he's doing great, he's a great kid. Um, living his best life, and now, of course, we look back on it 13 years later, and he's like, "Mom, that's the only reason I had to go to jail was
Yeah,
so that you could meet Dolores." I'm like, "I know. Thank you, thank you, thank you."
should thank him. Well, so that's what you're doing now. You hypnotize people and you have them going back to past regression life. And so you talk about the higher self. So how do you get to your higher self?
Yeah, Dolores Cannon's technique is called quantum healing
Hmm.
hypnosis technique, QHHT. I emphasize the healing because most people come to QHHT for physical healing.
Okay.
Cancer, autoimmune diseases, um, any sort of age-related diseases, diabetes, heart disease, pain, broken bones, broken bones that didn't heal right, all kinds of physical healing. 'Cause she found very late in her life, so this was, like, early 2000s. She passed, in 2014. So kind of at the end of her life, she found that she could use hypnosis and a connection to the higher self to physically heal people. And so that's what QHHT is about.
So people heal themselves or she heals people?
The higher self heals.
Your higher self heals you heal yourself then.
Exactly.
Okay. A
Exactly.
bit like like Reiki. Okay.
Exactly. And so, a QHHT session is and you only need 1, so this isn't a series of things, this is one and done, but each session is 5 to 7 hours. I spend all day with 1 client,
Oh my God. Oh
and then
yeah.
that client co it's intense, it's very intense.
Yeah.
That client comes in with all the questions they want the higher self to answer, so of course, this is physical healing, but you can also get answers about life decisions, relationships, past, present, future, it doesn't matter. And then I spend a couple of hours in the morning making sure that I understand the client's questions and the context around those questions. Because when we get into the hypnosis, I'm just having an organic conversation with the higher self. So we go into hypnosis. The hypnosis is 2 to 3 hours. Okay.
Do you record it? This way people can they don't remember. Do you record the session?
Some people remember, some people don't.
Okay.
Yeah, some people can remember. Most people can remember.
Okay.
Um, so we go into a really, really deep state of trance. The conscious mind is out of the way, and I'm having a direct conversation with the higher self through the client. Okay. So we're using the client's mouth, right? But the client's asleep, and I'm having this conversation to ask all of their questions of the higher self. And then all of that's audio recorded, and then the client has that to go work through. When it comes to physical healing, I think the very, very most important question that we ask the higher self is why? You know, why does Bob have cancer? Why is Bob having this experience with prostate cancer? Let's say there's always a reason from the higher self perspective. It's a message. Illness is always a message from the higher self for some reason. So we answer that question, why? What's that reason? And then I ask the higher self, well, now that he knows, is it appropriate for him to continue with this experience with the cancer? And the higher self usually has one of three answers. No, he doesn't need it anymore now that he knows, and it can be cured instantly. I've seen stage 4 cancer cured instantaneously in my office.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Another possibility is the higher self says, Um, no, he doesn't need it anymore, but he has to do X, Y, and Z in order for him to heal himself. But at least we know
Mhm.
what X, Y, and Z is. And then
Yeah.
it's Bob's choice. Does he want to do X, Y, and Z? Right. And then the third possible answer is no, Bob really needs to continue with this experience because he hasn't yet learned, he hasn't yet
Mm.
absorbed what he needs to from having had this experience. So one of those 3 answers happens, and we find out why. Why are you having this experience?
No. So if the person has to continue, do we know if this person is gonna die from it, or after they learn, they can maybe,
It
get better?
depends. It depends because this is, this plane of existence, three-dimensional Earth, is a place where our souls experience free will. And so the higher self cannot, negate that free will. So let's say, for example, this would be a very, very typical example. Bob has prostate cancer, just newly diagnosed, comes in for a QHHT session to see about healing. And so the prostate is generally, it's a sex part of our sexual relationship. So generally, cancer in this area has something to do with our romantic and intimate relationships. So let's say the higher self says, well, Bob needs to forgive Mary, his ex wife, and he
Yeah,
hasn't forgiven her yet. We could heal him instantly right now, but he hasn't decided if he wants to forgive Mary.
that's the hardest
And
things
in
to
order
do.
to heal, he needs to forgive Mary.
Yeah,
And so we're
forgiveness.
gonna have him continue with this experience of this cancer until he decides to forgive Mary.
I had a guest 3 weeks ago, I think, and she had the exactly same stories. She doesn't do what you do, but she can talk to her higher self. And her mom had cancer, and she asked her mom, maybe you need to forgive so and so from the family. And the mom was like, no, you crazy. And finally, she was talking about it. The mom did, and she cured herself. And she
Absolutely.
was like also very advanced in cancer, and the doctor didn't understand what happened.
The second book in in my trilogy is called Finding Forgiveness, Surprising Healing from the Higher Self. The higher self uses forgiveness most of the time for physical healing. Most of our physical situations, especially things associated with anger or jealousy, which are typically cancer and autoimmune, where the body's attacking itself, those kinds of illnesses are usually remedied through forgiveness.
We make ourselves sick.
Absolutely.
We kill ourselves with feelings. It's
Exactly.
when you
With
think about it,
resentment and
it's
judgment,
crazy.
jealousy, and all of these negative emotions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But forgiveness is one of the hardest, I must say. It's really hard to forget forgive someone who hurt you, who did something bad to you in the past. And but I see that I had a question about forgiveness because I saw that in your website you talk about that. That's one of the most like forgive yourself also.
Yeah. All forgiveness is ultimately
Yeah.
self-forgiveness. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So do you know how people can start practicing this?
Yeah. Well, that book is a how-to. And so I see this over and over and over again of how the higher self points to forgiveness for physical healing for very serious situations. We have free will to decide to do it or not. But if you decide to do it, yes. So Bob says, yes, yes, I want to forgive Mary. Okay. Well, what does he do? What does that mean? Does he just say, Mary, I forgive you? Is it that easy? No, it's not. And so then I started asking the higher self and I started seeing some patterns and stuff. And that second book in the trilogy is a how-to on forgiveness. And so, as an analytic person, a PhD, I sat down to write that book and I'm like, okay, so everybody needs to know if you need healing, point to forgiveness. That's probably a really good thing to do. And so I started writing this book about forgiveness and I'm like, well, surely there's some research on how to forgive. So surely somebody else has written a book on how to forgive. No, there's nothing out there. Not even the Bible, right? And so there's
Yeah.
all of these messages that we receive. You need to forgive. You need to forgive. Nobody tells you how to forgive. And so that second book is a 4-step process that is a how to on forgive. And the 4 steps are first, you have to see the situation. So, for example, we're going to stick with Bob and Mary and the prostate cancer, right? So Bob needs to recognize this anger, resentment, whatever he has going on with Mary, his ex-wife, from all perspectives. So see, that's the first step. So he has to see it from Mary's perspective. He has to see it from the higher self perspective. He has to see it from maybe their children's perspective. He has to see it from the perspective of the innocent bystander. He has to see that experience from all perspectives. So step 1, see. Second step is accept. It happened. So many times when we're needing to forgive something that happened in the past, we're like, well, yeah, but it could have been this way, or it could have been that. I
Yeah.
should have said that. Should have done that. That's not what happened. Accept what happened. What happened, happened. See it as happening. Accept that, yes, maybe you said some things you wish you didn't say. Maybe the other person said some things they didn't want to say. Maybe you did some things. Maybe they did some things, but it happened. So let's see it in all of its clarity and honesty. So see, accept. Okay. The third step is release.
Mm.
Yeah, it happened, but it happened in the past. It's not
Oh,
happening. It
I know.
happened. Okay. And our memory, neuroscientists know that our memory is the same as imagination. We actually imagine our memory. The process of memory of remembering in our brain is exactly the same process as imagining in our brain. And so when we release what happened to the past, into our imagination of the past, because that's all we have is imagination of the past, and realize that it's not in the present, then we can move into the fourth step, which is move. Move forward. Now what? Now what kind of relationship are you going to have with Mary? Now what are you going to do with other relationships? Let's move forward. And so often we want to keep a white knuckle grip on that past relationship, but we got to stop and think about, well, what are the future relationships? We got to look forward. We have to move. So see, accept, release, and move. And of course, I'm summarizing a 300 plus page book in 10 minutes. So there's a lot more of detail there. But basically, those are the fundamental steps of how to forgive. And nobody tells you how to do it. They just tell
No.
you need to do it, but how do you do it?
Oh my God. Where were you when I needed you for my 7 years grudge against my ex-boyfriend?
Yeah. And you're
It took me a
probably
long time
lucky that
to
you didn't give yourself cancer because of that situation.
seriously, I was so mad at him. So, but yeah, I had a lot of help, in spirituality and thing and praying a lot, thank God. But I can hold a grudge for a long time. I don't do that anymore. I know better now. But yeah, back in the days, yeah, people need those kind of tools. Definitely. You talk a lot also about about gratitude.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's
so
also
that's
something that comes back a
Yeah,
lot.
that's the 3rd book in the series. So just for
Hmm.
everybody's clarification. So this spiritual trilogy, so the first one is finding purpose, surprising wisdom from the higher self. So purpose. And they're intended the higher self helped me write all of them, and they intended them to be read in this order, so the order that they're presented. So the first thing you need to do is figure out your purpose. And what that book is, Finding Purpose, it's a compilation of over 400 QHHT sessions because everybody comes in with a question, what's my life purpose?
Yeah.
And, um, and so it's a compilation of over 400 sessions and the answers to that. What does the higher self say to these people about what their life purpose is? So that's the first one. And so getting a purpose. So having a sense of mission, having a sense of purpose of being here. The higher self is saying that's priority number 1. Cuz if you're just hopelessly going about like a robot going through life without a sense of purpose, the rest of it doesn't matter. Okay? So first you got to wake up to your purpose. Then it's surprising heat, finding forgiveness, surprising healing from the higher self, the one we were just talking about. So then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now that you're on a mission, now you got to heal, which means you got to heal your relationships with everybody, which you got to heal your relationship with yourself, which means you got to forgive. You got to forgive everybody and you got to forgive yourself. And then the third is so you got purpose, you got mission, you've done your healing. Now what? Now we're talking about spiritual growth. And that book is Finding Gratitude, Surprising Growth from the Higher Self. And so it's about how the higher self presented to me how there's this connection between how we show up to our life living in a state of gratitude. Okay. So the first thing is understanding clarity about gratitude. You know, everybody says you need a gratitude journal, right? So at the end of the night, have a journal, write down what you're grateful for, your blessings, be aware of your blessings. Of course, that's a great spiritual practice. Some people may think gratitude is like saying grace or something, like blessing your food before you eat it or something like that. That's one form of gratitude, of course. But that's not what the higher self is talking about with this gratitude. What they're talking about in this gratitude is your vibrational frequency, is your state of being. Are you living in a way in which you are grateful for every breath, even in the most horrendous pain? Okay.
Not
Living
easy.
gratefully for every moment, and they mean that literally, and not all moments are wonderful, okay? And when we choose to do that, when we choose to step into that way of being in our life, then that amplifies and accelerates our soul's growth. We can actually contribute to our soul in how we show up to our life. Nobody forced incarnation. Nobody forced anybody to be here. But your soul chose to have an incarnation in form for its growth, for soul growth. That's the whole reason why we're here, right? It's for soul growth. You can help that soul growth with how you show up to life, and showing up in a way of gratitude allows your soul to then reap more reward from the whole life. So, yeah, pretty important stuff.
That's beautiful. That's a little bit from Dolores Cannon also, right?
Maybe. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she talks a lot about that. That you're here to learn. It's one of
Mhm.
the purpose, of being incarnated. You're here to learn, and then you don't have to come back. You can stay in the other plane if you want. And I love the way she talks about like there is like a university up there
Yes,
somewhere,
yes.
and you can just stay there and learn from
Yeah,
the
and yeah, nobody
elders.
forced you to come into form, but now that you're in form, hey, let's make most of it. So we don't have to come back and do the same thing over
Exactly,
and over and over again. Yeah.
exactly. What do you think about people who have blocks? Um, because most people know it's hard to meditate and do all of this. So how will you help people who have they have like a lot of blocks from connecting with the higher self?
Yeah,
And how can they overcome this kind of barriers?
yeah. So, literally every single solitary QHHT session, I mean, maybe 1 in 100 this doesn't happen, but 99 out of 100 times, the higher self, when I ask, "Well, what does Bob need to do to stay healthy?" What advice would you have for him? The advice is to meditate.
It's unbelievable, right? But it's so hard to do.
Every single
It's like this,
solitary session, the
it's
higher
the
self.
answer for everything, this thing. But it's so
And
hard to calm your mind. Oh my
yeah, well,
God.
a lot of people, get hung up on this, and there's like, they might go to a Buddhist center to learn how to meditate or something like that, and there's some really, really complex modalities out there about meditation. But when the next of course, my next question, the higher self is, "Okay, well, what does Bob do? How does he meditate?" I mean, does it matter, for example, how often he meditates? Is it once a week, once a month, 7 times a day? They'll always say once a day. Always,
Yeah,
always. They'll say once a
I
day.
know. Once a day.
Well, and then my next question will be, "Well, how long? Is it minutes? Is it an hour? Is it multiple hours?" They said 10 minutes,
That's
10 to
it?
15
I was
minutes.
gonna say 30 minutes. Okay. 10
Nope,
minutes.
10 minutes. Okay?
Okay. Not too bad.
So not long. And then I go, "Okay." Next question, what does he do? Like, how does he meditate? Does he need to sit cross-legged and do some sort of mudra with his hands or have some sort of chant or a mantra or something? They never say that. He said
Mhm.
he needs to sit quietly and empty his mind.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So humans have made some meditation practices super, super, super complex, and that sometimes for some people that can be the problem. But it's literally and you can call it lots of things. Some people call that sitting quietly for 10 minutes, getting all of your worries out of your mind. Some people call that prayer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
When you
pray
pray.
for 10
Yeah.
minutes every day if that's what resonates with you. And the health benefits of that, the spiritual benefits of that are immense, and it's so ridiculously simple. Now, so I teach meditation in courses, and a lot of people will say, "Well, my understanding from the higher self is the definition of a meditative state is not thinking." So our goal in meditation, that 10 minutes every day, is to ultimately get good at not thinking, being in a state of not thinking. And when people first start in that 10 minutes, they might be able to achieve a non-thinking state for 3 seconds.
Yes.
And I'm not exaggerating. I'm
I
not
know.
ex
Believe me, I
3
know. Yeah.
seconds out of the whole 10 minutes. That's success. 3 months later, maybe it's 3 seconds 2 or 3 times within the 10 minutes. Enormous. A year later, maybe it's a full minute out of 10 minutes, okay? And so, don't beat yourself up if you can't get into a non-thinking state for 10 minutes in even a year. For some people, it can take 5, 10 years to get into that, but a mere 3 seconds of not thinking about anything is a huge win when you're just starting.
If you do guided meditation, does that count?
No,
Is still talking.
does not count.
Doesn't count,
Not
right? That's what I
according to the
thought.
higher self. It does not count.
Yeah. It has to be you alone, nothing, no
It has to be
music,
you
no thoughts.
alone, quiet.
See, so that's why I became recently a sound healer because there's still music, but people just like they leave their body. They just get transported somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's a
They
good full
do
hour of
say
nothing.
yep, the music is good, but if it's another human talking, if it's language, if you're verbally processing language, that's not what they consider meditation.
Okay. Music is good. Yeah. And for what you do in the 3, 5 hours, people have to be with you in the room or do you do that online?
It is
It's in person,
QHHT
right?
is never done remotely, it is only done in person.
Okay. And just for the listener, if they're interested, you are located in Colorado.
Yes, but there's practitioners all over the world. I'm what's
Okay.
called a level 3 practitioner, and all that means is the top level. It just means that I've been certified to be practicing exactly as Dolores did.
Mm.
When you see a level 3 practitioner, it's as if you're getting a session from Dolores herself, okay? And there's level 3 practitioners all over the world. If you go to qhhtofficial.com, anybody can search by their location, but there's level 3 practitioners in London, in South Africa, in all over the United States, in, Asia. I mean, we're all over.
Okay. Okay, good to know. So before we go, maybe you already said, but just to be sure, what according to you, what would be the most important message that the higher self would tell us?
Gosh. I used to think that before I really so I'm in conversation with the higher self all day, every day, right? So I have a front row seat. I have the best job in the world. I have a
I
front row
know.
seat to the universe, right? Universal wisdom, right? And I used to think, Veronique, I used to think, okay, so our soul incarnates into this really tough place. We get a lot of, injuries here, physical and emotional and otherwise. And then we depart, we die, we go back to our soul, and then there's some sort of healing process. That's what I used to think. That's not how it works.
No.
No. I'm here to heal. The healing happens in form, not
Ah,
in spirit.
that's why you come
And
back
so
then,
yeah,
because you don't heal over there. You have to come back here to heal.
exactly,
Makes
exactly.
sense.
And so the most important thing you can do, if you're listening to this, you're a human being, you have ears, you understand English, and so you're here in form as a human being. Now's your time to heal. Now's your time to tend to your healing.
It's funny because sometimes your so your past life can repeat, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And I was talking to one psychic that I know. She's really, really good. And she was telling me, "Oh, I see one in your past life. You're working very hard. You go back home. You have your kid, on your back. So it was like a long time ago. You open your little house, and your husband is there with like another woman, in the bed. And I'm like, wait a minute, that happened in my current life.
Yes. Yes. So you have healing. You have healing to do around that story. Yes.
This I don't need to carry that
Yes.
from the past life
Yes.
again in here.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
do it
the
now and you don't have to
yeah,
do it again.
okay, yeah, but that's the 7 years grudge that I was holding. So now I
Very
think
good.
I'm healed. I know that there's
Y
good men now.
good.
I'm happily married now, so everything is good. But yeah, it's funny that our stuff, can repeat and you bring them back with you because you haven't healed. So I guess in that past life, I didn't heal from that. Well, Holly, thank you very much. That was I love this kind of conversation, especially you talk about Dolores, and I really love her books, and I'm gonna read more. Do you want to add anything else? Maybe something I didn't ask you?
Just, awarecaredurango.com. I'm sure you're gonna link my website.
Yes.
Starting in the new year, every new year, I have some sort of course that I've been guided by the higher self, whatever vibe of that year. And in 2026, it's called Kick the Fix. Kick the Fix in 2026. It's a 21-day intensive. And what the higher self wants us all working on in 2026 is getting ourselves out of duality, out of polarity, black, white, good, bad, left, right, all of this. This needs to be healed. And so kick the fix is about kicking your hook into duality, into polarity, and rising above that and being able to operate above duality. And then that's going to help us heal the world. So if you go to Aware Care Durango and courses, you're going to see that. My January cohort's already sold out, but February still.
Okay. Wow. In high demand. All right. So I'm gonna put that in the show notes. I hope by the time that episode will come out, it's not gonna be sold out for February though.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
If not,
we'll
we'll
see.
open one for March.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just good things. Thank you, Holly. Thank you very much for all your information and everything you're doing for everybody because the world needs a lot of healing.
Thank you, Veronique, for giving us a platform.
You're welcome. I love it. Bye.